I'm here with Ruth Davidson, MSP and leader of the Scottish Conservative and Unionist Party. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening.
So, following on from your talk, how would you characterise the interests of Scotland both during the Brexit negotiations and as the UK leaves the EU?
Well, there's the formal setup, so that's the Joint Ministerial Council. That's where the First Minister and the Brexit Ministers sit down with the Prime Minister and the other First Ministers and Brexit Ministers from around the UK, along with the Secretaries of State. So there's the formal process. But let's not forget that the Scottish Government isn't Scotland, so there's lots of work that's going on behind the scenes as well. So lots of people who have an interest in terms of their sector, so whether that's financial services, whether that's agriculture, whether that's fishing, are making sure that they're having representations to the UK Government too. And quite often it's myself or David Mundell who's facilitating that, that's going on. And then there's also the idea as well that's grown up in Scotland that the SNP have decided, because they're trying to engineer and use Brexit to engineer another independence referendum, that they want to make sure that there's the Brexit result, if you like, the negotiations are different. And there's like a differentiated deal is the words that they use. But the only differentiated deal they're recognising is differentiation of place, i.e. Scotland gets something different. But what they haven't suggested is why, a soft fruit farmer in Perthshire needs something different from a soft fruit farmer in Kent, when they're both saying that they need a seasonal workers visa, for example, or why somebody that works in RBS in Edinburgh needs something different to somebody who works in the same job in RBS in London. So what the UK government is talking about is having a deal that's differentiated by sector, so that we make sure we look after financial services, we look after agriculture, we look after higher education, rather than one that says that it's by geography.
So secondly, what are your opinions on John Bercow's statements in the House of Commons regarding Donald Trump's state visit to the UK?
Well, I think what was quite interesting was that his opposite number in the Lords said, you haven't even talked to us about that yet, because as Bercow said, that there was different three key holders for Westminster Hall and all the rest of it. Now, ultimately, it's up to him to run his speakership as he runs his speakership. But I'm perhaps a little bit older than a number of the students here at the LSE and yourself, and I grew up with Betty Boothroyd as the Speaker of the House of Commons, who was an absolute force of nature. Nobody would ever suggest that she didn't have a personality, but she was very, very strong on upholding the role of the speakership and making sure that it was beyond reproach. And I asked myself, would Betty Boothroyd have made such a nakedly political statement to the House? Actually, I'm not sure she would. Would any speaker in my lifetime have done so? And why wouldn't they? Because they have to keep the speakership beyond reproach, and they've got to divorce the role of the speaker from the person who inhabits it.
So thirdly, is the government doing enough to address the pressure on the NHS services? And do you think the NHS needs possibly a dedicated NHS tax?
Well, I think when you look at health services both in this country and around the world, you're seeing an awful lot of pressures that are the same. So even if you've got different systems, so you've got an insurance system in France, you've got a pay system somewhere else, you've got a higher taxation level in one of the Scandinavian countries, but a different setup in terms of the way healthcare is provided. Actually, all of these systems are facing the same pressures, and a lot of that is demographic pressure. People are living longer. There's also the kind of baby boomers that are coming to the end of their life. So there was a kind of there was a bump in the world population, and they're all running into complex health concerns. So you've got a question about what it is that we want the NHS to do. Does it do everything or not? Now, if you want it to continue to do everything, then you're going to have to pay more money for it, because there is more to do. If you want to look at whether you can change the way services are provided, so do more in the community, say, rather than acute hospitals, if you can put a percentage of the health budget, say 10, 12% into general practice, so that they're the gatekeepers of acute medical care, then you can change, you can get more bang for your buck, if you like, in the way you do things. So I think there's a really big debate that has to happen. Obviously, healthcare in Scotland is utterly devolved and has been for 17 years. So we are not in charge of the English Health Service, and neither is Jeremy Hunt in charge of the Scottish one. It's completely divorced. So I don't want to opine too strongly. But what I would say is that the pressures facing the NHS in England are no different from the pressures facing health services all around the world. And a big debate has to happen about what it is that we want for our money, and therefore how much we're prepared to pay for it.
So are you advocating just shifting funds around within the NHS or plugging more in?
Well, I think that's a debate that people in England and Wales have to have about the NHS service that they want. But I think they also have to have a discussion about, can we do more within the envelope we have, as well as look at whether we need a bigger envelope. So I think that's all part of the discussion. But like I say, I wouldn't really appreciate one of my English colleagues telling Scottish people how to have a debate about their NHS, and I'm not going to do the same to them. So. Okay.
Well, lastly, what are the challenges you face as an openly gay Conservative MSP?
To be honest, I kind of have got past quite a lot of that. When I was elected leader of the Scottish Conservative Party, I was the first openly gay leader of any major party anywhere in the UK. Now there's a few since then, which I think is very helpful, because we, as you push the envelope, you make it easier for everyone that comes after. And I think what frustrated me when I was running for the leadership in Scotland was there was 4 MSPs that were going for the same role, and the other 3 were all described in the newspapers by the job they did. So it was like, Deputy Leader X, Committee Convener Y, Transport Spokesman Z, and then it said lesbian kickboxer Ruth Davidson, when it was talking about what I was doing as part of the leadership campaign. And what I've tried very hard to do is to make sure that any time I'm asked about my sexuality or issues of personal to me regarding LGBT treatment and promotion, is never duck away from it. I'll always answer, always make sure that I never, don't represent, that I never pretend it's something I don't want to talk about or that we shouldn't talk about. But hopefully, as well, as I've grown within the role of being leader of the Conservative Party, the words in front of my name aren't lesbian kickboxer anymore, they're Tory leader Ruth Davidson, because I've got a lot to say on a lot of subjects and not just talk about my own sexuality.
So would you consider yourself a trailblazer then?
No, I'm Presbyterian, so I would never sort of do any sort of self-aggrandisement. But what I would say is I have felt a pressure to make sure that, first and foremost, to make sure that I'm good at what I do, so I'm not embarrassing to other gay people. When I was the first one to come out, I was always out, but when I was the first one to be elected into that position, I didn't want people to think, oh God, we finally got one and she's rubbish, So that was a bit of a pressure. I think as well, when I was first elected, I got lots and lots of emails from mostly young gay men, actually, but a couple of young gay women, who were all saying, I'm not a Tory bot, ... or I'm out to my friends, but I'm not out to my school, or I'm not out to my parents. I've always quite fancied politics, but I never thought it was for me. And I'm really pleased you got elected. And it genuinely hadn't occurred to me that it mattered to anybody else who the leader of the Tory party in Scotland was, or that person was me. And that was the point at which I made that decision, that I would always, always, always answer. I would never duck it. I would never shun it. And it mattered to me because even though it has come at a personal cost to me at times, and I've had to give more of myself than I would want to give, it's important that you are able to move that envelope. And hopefully every time somebody asks me a stupid or intrusive question, or even one that's perfectly legitimate, but it's a question that's not been asked before, every time that gets answered by somebody in a position like mine or by me, it means the next person that comes along doesn't get asked that question. And that's important too.
Great. Well, thank you so much for answering our questions, and thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.